All right, everyone, continuing with the notes for Chapter 2, we're now going to move on to looking at the beginnings of computer technology and communication on up to the Internet. The Internet is the global interconnection of computer networks made possible by using common communication protocols. Did you ever think about how to define the Internet? There you go. There's your definition. So it comprises of these four major things. There is the World Wide Web, how we go to different sites and pages. There's email, main form of communication. There's File Transfer Protocol, or FTP. This is a way that you can send and receive files through the Internet or store files for yourself. And then there's the Real-Time Messaging Protocol, RTMP. This is how we get a lot of streaming data, video and audio online. Now, how did this all come about? Well, we have to go back to the Cold War era. The Internet was developed out of concern for military preparedness in order to have military communications in case of an emergency. What would happen if phone lines were out of order or they were hijacked? What happened if radio communication was not a possibility? Well, we started thinking about those sort of things as a country, and, well, that's how the Internet began its journey. In 1957, Sputnik was the first man-made satellite developed by the Soviet Union, and this caused concern for the U.S. during the Cold War. As the Soviet Union, Russia today, was putting up communication protocols and developing them, the U.S. realized that it needed to do the same thing and needed to get as good as or even better than the Soviet Union in being able to communicate in an emergency. So in 1958, President Eisenhower develops DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. And he puts together a group of military advisors and scientists to come up with an answer to Sputnik. Paul Barron of the Rand Corporation theorized that in order to make a communication system less vulnerable to attack, that communication should take several pathways. So he likened it to the way that your network of nerves works in your brain. How a message from your brain to various parts of your body can travel several different pathways to make it to your hands, to your feet, to your legs, that sort of thing. So he thought, why couldn't we do the same thing with our communication? Donald Davies developed packet switching, and it's the idea that data should be broken up into small strings or bits that could be enclosed in what he called electronic pockets, which would be able to move quickly with communication networks. So it was kind of taking that idea that Paul Barron had and putting a little bit of practicality to it as to how that would work. So almost kind of think about it as like if you have a stream that is flowing down a hill, and that stream winds up taking several different branches in one part, and then they all come back together at the end of that stream to form one unified river. So you've got information that is flowing along some of these different branch streams, but then they all come back together in the end. So these data pockets make it possible for information to move quickly and also to be resent quickly if any of the data were to get lost. And that was important for receiving communications in a timely manner. The Network Control Program, NCP, was a system devised to allow communications between several locations for those different locations that were working on DARPA projects. That was succeeded by the Transmission Control Protocol, or TCP. the switching system that controls modern communication networks. So TCP is a protocol that we do use today. These are all different ways of being able to take the theories that we just previously talked about and putting them into action. In 1969, UCLA and Stanford universities were able to connect two network computers together so that a computer at UCLA could talk to a computer at Stanford and vice versa. And then a year later, other universities were able to connect together with their computers, making ARPANET the first fully connected nationwide computer network. So as the beginnings of networked computers become more and more of a thing, the first way that those network computers were prominently used was sending and receiving messages, and electronic mail became something that was developed. Ray Tomlinson developed the first practical network email program in 1972, and he's the one responsible for the @ symbol being used to identify a user with the network that he or she was using. So anything before the @ would be your username. Anything after the @ symbol would be associated with the particular network that you're associated with, or the particular service. In 1976, Vinton Cerf and Robert Kahn developed the Transmission Control Protocol Internet Protocol, or TCP/IP. This replaces NCP and allows for documents, pictures, and all other sorts of files to be transferred over networks. So now we're not just dealing with text, we're dealing with attachments as well. In 1976, Steve Bellevin at UNC develops Usenet as a system that enabled groups of computer users to send messages between UNC Chapel Hill and Duke. So we have a local connection to all of this stuff coming together. UNC and Duke, major players in how we use the internet today. This was developed as a bulletin board, similar in scope to today's forums. So it was a place that you could post messages, and it could be seen by anyone on the network, and people can reply to those messages and that sort of thing. Telnet gave users the ability to connect and control various computers from remote locations, usually through telephone lines. And then, after the telephone line, the Ethernet allowed for an array of computers to be connected into a single local area network. So now it's not just one computer connecting to another computer. You've got computers, several computers in a location being able to be networked together and to be connected to other networks as well. The growth in network capability allowed individuals to use email and develop materials for publication. And we see the development of domain name servers, which made it so that numerical IP addresses no longer had to be memorized. So if you didn't know, every web page out there has an IP address, and that's generally realized these days as 4 sets of 3-digit numbers. You could type in those digits instead of a web address, and it will call up a particular website or a particular server. But DNS was developed so that you can use words instead of having to memorize a bunch of numbers. And then the National Science Foundation Network comes online. It is the creation of the Information Superhighway, a high-speed backbone that linked supercomputer centers. This made use of the internet much more viable, much more ubiquitous, and available to anybody and everybody. It wasn't just in the university and scholarly and government sectors anymore. And with that, we will go ahead and take another break. One more video to watch in the Chapter 2 series, and that is the one labeled Part D.